Question 3 is a problem-solving question in which we're told, of the 100 screws in my workbox, 60 are cross-headed and 40 are slot-headed, so that adds up to 100. Similarly, 70 are 3mm diameter, 20 are 4mm, 10 are 5mm diameter, 80 are 50mm long, 5 are 35mm long, and 15 are 20mm long. So this is a breakdown of the 100 screws within the workbox on the basis of 3 different variables: the shape of the head, the diameter, and the length. We're asked to work out what is the smallest number of cross-headed 3mm diameter 50mm long screws that there could possibly be. So we're trying to work out what the minimum potential number of cross-headed 3mm diameter and 50mm long screws that there could be within this 100. So how many could conform to these 3 variables, and we're looking for the minimum possible number. Okay, so let's have a think about this. Rather than working out how many conform to all 3 variables at once, which can be quite tricky, let's do this in a 2-step process. Firstly, let's work out what the minimum number of cross-headed 3mm screws would be, so we'll just deal with the first 2 variables, and then once we've established that fact, we'll work out what the minimum number of these cross-headed 3mm screws that can also be 50mm. Okay, so I'll explain this 2-step process. We'll start with step 1. So we have 60 cross-headed, 40 slot-headed screws, so CH and SH respectively, and we have this breakdown of the diameters, so 73mm, 24mm, and 10 5mm. Now we're looking for the minimum number, the smallest number, of cross-headed screws that are also 3mm. So what we can do is allocate all of our slot-headed to the 3mm ones. So we'll allocate all 40 of these over here, but that leaves 30 remaining, which have to be made up by the cross-headed screws, and these will also be, the remaining 30 will be distributed between the 40mm, the 4mm, and the 5mm. So this is the minimum possible number of cross-headed screws that can be 3mm, because there are only 40 slot-headed ones. Okay, so now that we've worked out that we have a minimum of 30 cross-headed screws which are 3mm, we can write that down. So we have 30 cross-headed 3mm screws and 70 others, so all the other variables. So we're looking for the minimum number of these screws which are also 50mm. So we go through the same process. Let's allocate all 70 of our other screws to this 50mm shape. So that's 70 of these will be 80, but since it adds up to 100, or rather in this case it adds up to 80, the remaining 10 have to come from our 30 cross-headed 3mm screws. So we have our answer already, that 10 is the minimum number of cross-headed 3mm 50mm screws. So we can allocate the rest, and we can say our answer to this question is 10 is the minimum number of screws which meet all 3 variables.